Welcome to Veterans of the North. I'm Trent Dilks, and today we're going to have a discussion with World War II veteran Bill Homan. Bill, welcome. I'm looking forward to getting the chance to speak with you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit before recording, Bill, and I believe you Minnesota born and raised, right?
Right in Montevideo.
Right in Montevideo. So what's that like growing up? Is you're growing up in Montevideo?
Oh, it's a typical small town.
Yeah.
Everything revolved around your school and your church.
Okay. All right. Small community, tight knit. Everybody pretty close.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You were talking. I think you said there was a plant there that canned corn.
Yes.
Okay. So very agriculture. Very.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. Were you out on a farm or were you
No,
in town?
born and raised right in town.
Okay. All right. So you were a town kid.
Yep.
All right. Were the farm kids tougher, or did they just think they were?
Oh, we kind of picked on them, you know.
No.
And I thought they were kind of hicks.
Yeah. Well,
They came in at 9th grade.
Yeah.
Because at that time they had all country schools through 8th.
Oh, okay. So then you got to mingle in 9th grade, and
Right.
yeah, you had to explain to them what a desk was, and I grew up outside of a small town, so us gravel road kids, we were a little bit different than I think my town had 1,200 people in it, and
Yeah.
the kids from the big town, they were different than us out there on the gravel road. So, and then, so let's see, as you're going through high school, I guess when in your timeline is Pearl Harbor? Do you remember where you were at in school at that point?
Oh, I definitely remember it.
Okay, could you tell us a little bit about that?
We went to church on that Sunday morning, and we came home from church, and we had a Montgomery Ward radio with 4 spindles for legs.
Yeah, yeah.
And we got real close to the box so we could hear. And then it had all about what happened.
Okay, all right. Everybody's just in shock, I have to imagine.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I was born in 1926, and of course that was in 1941.
yeah, yep. So we do 15 at the time?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Do you remember the town's reaction? I mean, is it shock silence? Is it anger? What's going on in a small rural town hearing about this out in Hawaii?
Well, at that time I had a paper route, and I also sold papers, and it was the Minneapolis Star-Tribune.
Yeah.
And I had a Main Street route, plus I sold them to all of the restaurants. And we did get a special edition that came in on the bus in the evening, and the headline was, half of it was extra. And then it told about the bombing.
Yeah.
And the paper agent and we went to all of the little nightclubs and stuff around Montevideo at that time, and we sold them a couple hundred papers in about 10 minutes.
I bet everybody had to read about it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of your part of spreading the word and spreading history right there as the local paper were out. What's school like after that? I gotta imagine the upperclassmen, the older boys are thinking they're gonna join, or kind of. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. One experience I had, a man that was manager of one of the lumber yards in Montevideo. His son couldn't pass the physical to get because everybody that would have been in the class of 1943, and I was in the class of 1944.
Yeah.
And he was 4F, so he took a job with the Merchant Marine.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
And well, then they lowered the standards for health.
Yeah.
So then he tried enlisting again, and he did get in. He was killed over in Europe.
Oh my.
He'd have never had to been in.
Yeah. But that was kind of the idea at the time, right? Was
Yeah,
that if you could, you would go and serve and be a part of it?
like my class, we all knew we were going to go in.
Yeah.
We'd either be drafted or otherwise.
Yeah.
So if you enlisted, you could get in the Navy. Wouldn't
Yeah.
have to be in the infantry and so forth.
Yeah.
And I enlisted in the Army Air Corps.
Okay. So yeah, so you have what, another year of school?
Oh, that was my senior year. Here's the way they did. They were uh, getting guys to go into the to be pilots in the
Yeah.
Air Force, and they came out to Montevideo, and we went into the big study hall, and there was around 100 of us that took this 4-hour exam. Most of it was true and false or multiple choice. But of that bunch, 20 of us passed. And we went down to Fort Snelling. And we had a real tough physical. 4 of the 20 dropped out there.
Yeah.
And that was November 2nd in 1943. And that was the beginning of my enlistment.
Okay. All right. And so from there, is it off to, is this where you go to Biloxi?
Then I had to wait till I graduated from high school.
Okay, so it's a delayed
This was
entry.
in November 2nd of 1943.
Okay. So then you go back, you wrap up school,
Yep.
and then is it off to Biloxi? Is that
Went back into Fort Snelling, and they gave me a train ticket to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas.
okay?
That's where I was given my uniforms and all that stuff.
Yep.
And then I got on a troop train to Biloxi.
Okay. And that's where you learn to be a mechanic.
Right.
All right.
Because by the time I got there, the aviation cadet program had stopped
Okay.
because they had enough in the line.
Okay. So, which plane do you learn to be a mechanic on again?
B-17 Flying Fortress.
Okay, the Flying Fortress.
Yep.
All right. What's that like? What's it like learning to work on an airplane?
Oh, most of it was real close quarters.
Yeah.
You're humped over most of the time in the fuselage.
A little bit different than maybe the cars that you were working on back home, or
Right.
what you covered in shop in school.
Yeah.
All right. So you finish your time in Biloxi. Is it stateside service then, or are you off to overseas? Or
Yeah. Well, then from there, I finished that bomber school. Then I went on a troop train to Amarillo Air Base in Amarillo, Texas, to go through a B-29 bomber school.
Okay.
But while I was there, they closed the school.
Oh.
In fact, they closed the base because the war was winding down enough.
Yeah.
And so I never did go through that. But then when I got over to Okinawa, I did work on some B-29s because they were very similar to the B-17. They were both Boeing products.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're fixing planes in Okinawa?
Yeah, we won just a month is all.
Okay. So is the war over, or
Yeah, the war was over.
okay? So were you stateside then when they dropped the bomb on Japan?
Yes, I was in basic training yet.
Okay. What was that like? What was, the reaction to that in the States?
Well, both. Everybody was really happy and thrilled.
Yeah.
You know, it bugged me for after the war. This was many years afterwards. Some people advocated that we should apologize to Japan for dropping the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
God damn it, we didn't. They didn't apologize for us for wiping out Pearl Harbor, did they?
Yeah. And I know at the time the estimates were, if you had to invade the homeland of Japan, the actual island, up to 1 million casualties.
Now, when the time that I was in Okinawa, the whole island was full of tent city, because that was a staging area for if we were going to have to invade.
Yeah. On a previous episode, I was interviewing a Marine who island hopped and had ended up on Okinawa. He had actually been there when they took Okinawa.
Yeah.
And heard his reaction to when they dropped the bomb. And so there he was. He had already island hopped several different islands and taken several different islands. And he said, "There's no question. You know, they were already telling him at least half of you won't make it,
Right.
the initial invasion." And so when they dropped the bomb, it was something that, you know, it saved the lives of people they served with.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So you learn to be an airplane mechanic.
Yep.
After you leave Okinawa, is it time to leave the service, or do you still have some time?
Well, I got home and I don't know why. For a short while before I went into the service, I worked for Northwestern Bell Telephone Company,
Okay.
and so I took a job right away with REC at that time. It was REC instead of REA,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they were going to build a generating plant at Howick, Minnesota.
Yeah.
You know where that is?
No.
It's on 23,
Okay.
this side of St. Cloud,
Oh, okay.
the other side of Painesville.
Yeah. Yep.
And the manager of REC in Montevideo had a son that was a civil engineer. And myself and another GI, we worked from that power plant. We surveyed about 25 miles each direction from where that plant was going to be. So I had a paycheck right away. I never did.
Okay.
So
And then do you end up in the farm implement business? Is that right?
then that job came to an end. So I went up to the employment office. And at that time, they didn't have individual offices. They just had one long counter. And they had 3 different men that was interviewing us.
Okay.
And anyway, I overheard the guy next to me. He was looking for, they had started a GI Bill on the job training program.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was looking to get a young GI.
Liar.
So he went out and I got out and I saw him getting his little orange Ella Chalmers pickup. And I followed him out to the shop.
Yeah.
And I told him my name. I'd never been on a farm. Told him my name and that I was interested in applying for that OJT.
Yeah.
And it was a 2-year program. Instead of college, it was on-the-job training. And 40 years later, I was in the same building.
Wow.
I worked for him for 24 years, and then my wife and I owned it for 18 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's an amazing. You chased him down, huh?
Yep.
Boy, I would have liked to seen the truck too. I don't know if I've ever seen an Alice Chalmers truck. That'd be a sight to see. Is that one still around?
Well, it was a little Ford pickup, 1935 model with a wooden stake box.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
very cool. So I suppose that time then you get to know all the farmers in the area.
Oh,
You
yeah.
get to, did that connect you also with a lot of fellow veterans? I mean, a lot
Oh, yes.
a lot of World War II vets come
Yep.
back, and
My boss and one of the other guys that worked at the shop, they had a GI school for GI farmers.
okay.
2 nights a week. They had that for a year program.
And it was just kind of teaching them farming and,
Yeah.
and what they needed to know. And
Yeah.
well, that sounds like a terrific program.
That was through the GI Bill, too. Those guys got paid for going to school.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. So I guess as you're transitioning out, and I believe you've been married for a couple of years, is that right?
And October 2nd, this 2024, my wife and I, we had a big celebration at the Veterans Home in Montevideo, celebrating our 75th wedding anniversary.
75 years. That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, congratulations on 75 years. What is that, the quadruple diamond anniversary?
It was a diamond.
Okay.
And we really good marriage. We had 77 kids, 5 boys and 2 girls.
Okay.
Yep.
And then a grandson that's continuing the service. Is that right?
Yep.
a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force.
Yep.
Yeah, yep.
And even with the COVID was on, my wife and one of my sons and one of my daughters, we flew out to Washington, D.C., and we had the ceremony at the World War II Memorial, and I got to pin the major pins on him.
Oh, excellent.
Yep.
Yeah, because I mean, you were Air Force before there was Air Force. You were
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Back up a little bit. I have to ask. I don't think either of my listeners will let it go. What's the secret to 75 years of marriage?
You got to, it's a give and take situation.
Okay.
There was more than one time that I might have walked out the door and slammed it hard.
Yeah.
But you got to eat a little humble pie. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you'd also mentioned something about the last word.
Yeah.
You gotta always make sure you get the last word.
Yes. And you know what that last word is?
What are the last words you got to get?
Yes, dear.
Yes, dear. There it is, the secret to 75 years of marriage. I guess just to wrap up, we have a lot of younger veterans. We just came out of 20 years of war. A lot of veterans who are leaving the service, and they're looking at, finding their place in the world outside of the military. What advice would you give them as they're stepping back into the civilian world? Any words of wisdom or advice or things that served you well in a long professional career? Anything you would tell them is kind of your words of wisdom to those who are starting to walk in those tracks.
Well, try to find employment of something that you enjoy doing, so that going to work is not a drudgery, but it's going to be enjoyment.
Yeah.
And so I was 42 years in the same building, and I enjoyed it every hour of it.
Oh, that's excellent. So find something you enjoy and find a good partner to do it with.
You bet.
All right. Well, Bill, I really appreciate you coming to speak with us today and sharing your story. Thank you so much for being here. And so thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right.